November 22nd, 1963. FBI Headquarters, Washington, D.C., 2:47 p.m. J. Edgar Hoover sat behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear, listening to reports from Dallas. President Kennedy was dead, shot in his motorcade. The nation in shock. Hoover hung up, reached for his intercom. "Get me the Kennedy file, the complete file." His secretary hesitated. "Sir, which Kennedy file? The president's file, or all of them? Jack, Bobby, the father. I want everything on my desk in 10 minutes. She knew what he meant. Not the official FBI files, the other files. The ones kept in the basement, the ones with the steel doors. 9 minutes later, 3 folders landed on Hoover's desk. File 1, John F. Kennedy. See on F. Potential. Contents: photographs of JFK with multiple women. Hotel records. Phone tap transcripts. Names, dates, locations. Marilyn Monroe. Judith Campbell Exner. White House staff members. File 2, Robert F. Kennedy. Confidential. Contents: wiretap recordings of phone calls between RFK and Marilyn Monroe. Evidence of affairs. Communications with questionable associates. File 3, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. See on F. Potential. Contents: documentation of bootlegging operations during Prohibition, mob connections, financial crimes, tax evasion evidence. Hoover opened the president's file, studied the photographs, the transcripts, the evidence he'd been collecting for 3 years. Then he closed it, picked up the phone. "Get me Robert Kennedy," Bobby answered, voice shaking. "Director Hoover, I'm calling to offer FBI assistance in investigating your brother's death." "Thank you. We'll need, and to remind you that certain sensitive materials relating to your family remain in FBI custody, for security purposes." Silence on the other end. Bobby understood. The president was dead, but the files weren't. For 48 years, J. Edgar Hoover collected secrets on presidents, on senators, on judges, on movie stars, on civil rights leaders, on anyone who mattered. He used those secrets to stay in power. 8 presidents served during his tenure. None of them fired him, because all of them feared what he knew. This is the story of Hoover's files, what was in them, how he got the information, who he destroyed, and how one man used secret surveillance to rule America from 1924 to 1972. For Segment 124, how Hoover built his kingdom. J. Edgar Hoover became director of the Bureau of Investigation at age 29. The previous director had resigned in scandal, corruption, bribery, agents on mob payrolls. Attorney General Harlan Stone gave Hoover one instruction: clean it up. Hoover did. Within months he fired every corrupt agent, established professional standards, created training programs, built the Bureau into a legitimate law enforcement agency. But he also did something else, something Stone didn't authorize. He started collecting files. Not case files, personal files, secret files, files on people who weren't criminals, files on people in power. His first target, members of Congress. File index card, 1925, Senator redacted, extramarital affair with secretary, photographs obtained, hotel records confirm. File index card, 1926, representative redacted, accepting payments from oil companies. Bank records show $50,000 in suspicious deposits. Hoover's system was simple. Step 1. FBI agents conduct background investigations on public figures, officially for security clearance purposes, unofficially for Hoover's files. Step 2. Information classified as sensitive gets routed to Hoover's office, not to official case files, to the basement, to the locked room. Step 3. Index cards created, cross-referenced, filed, available whenever Hoover needs leverage. By 1930, Hoover had files on 200 members of Congress. By 1940, over 500. Former FBI Assistant Director William Sullivan would later testify, Hoover had something on everybody. That's how he stayed director for 48 years. Nobody dared fire him. But Hoover wasn't just collecting on politicians. He was collecting on everyone. 1930s, the Hollywood files. During the 1930s, Hoover became obsessed with Hollywood. Communist infiltration, he claimed. Need to monitor the entertainment industry. FBI agents were assigned to watch actors, directors, screenwriters, follow them, record their activities, document their personal lives. File Charlie Chaplin. communist sympathizer, multiple marriages, affairs with underage actresses, immigration status questionable, file Errol Flynn, sexual misconduct, statutory rape allegations, drug use, bisexual activities documented. The files contained everything: who they slept with, who they voted for, what they said at parties, who their friends were, and Hoover used them. In 1940, when actor Errol Flynn was charged with statutory rape, his attorneys discovered that FBI had been investigating Flynn for years, not for crimes, for leverage. When Chaplin criticized American foreign policy, Hoover leaked information about his personal life to friendly journalists. Chaplin was eventually exiled from the United States. The message was clear: stay in line, or your secrets become public. Franklin Roosevelt appointed Hoover director, then tried to control him, failed. In 1940, Roosevelt asked Hoover to investigate political opponents. Hoover agreed, but he also started a file on Roosevelt. File: Franklin D. Roosevelt. Extramarital affair with Lucy Mercer. Additional relationships documented. Wife Eleanor's activities also monitored. Roosevelt learned about the file, called Hoover to the White House. Director, I understand you've been collecting information on my personal life. Mr. President, the FBI maintains files on many individuals for security purposes, including me, including anyone relevant to national security, sir. Roosevelt understood. He never asked Hoover to stop investigating opponents, and he never tried to fire Hoover. The pattern repeated with every president. Harry Truman tried to fire Hoover in 1945, then learned about FBI files documenting his connections to Kansas City political machine boss Tom Pendergast. Files showing payoffs, corruption, vote buying. Truman backed down. Dwight Eisenhower considered replacing Hoover in 19... Then FBI discovered evidence of extramarital affairs during Eisenhower's military career. Photographs, witness statements. Eisenhower kept Hoover. John F. Kennedy wanted Hoover gone. Bobby Kennedy, the Attorney General, started planning Hoover's retirement. Then Hoover invited Bobby to his office, showed him files on Jack's affairs with Marilyn Monroe, with Judith Campbell Exner, a woman also sleeping with mob boss Sam Giancana, with White House staffers, files on Bobby's own relationship with Marilyn Monroe, files on their father's mob connections. Bobby left the meeting pale. The Kennedys stopped talking about firing Hoover. Former Kennedy aide Arthur Schlesinger later wrote, Hoover had the Kennedy family in a vice. He didn't need to blackmail them explicitly, just showing them the files was enough. Lyndon Johnson hated Hoover, called him that fairy in private, wanted him gone. But Johnson also knew Hoover had files on him, files documenting Johnson's corrupt business dealings, his stolen elections, his extramarital affairs. In 1964, Johnson met with Hoover, emerged from the meeting shaken, told aides, I can't touch him, he knows too much. Johnson gave Hoover a lifetime appointment, waived the mandatory retirement age. Richard Nixon feared Hoover more than anyone, because Hoover knew about Nixon's secret fund in 1952, knew about Nixon's dirty campaign tactics, knew everything. When Nixon took office in 1969, he tried to establish control over FBI, failed. Nixon's chief of staff H.R. Haldeman wrote in his diary, the president is terrified of Hoover. Whatever's in those files, it's enough to keep Hoover untouchable. 8 presidents, none of them could fire J. Edgar Hoover, because all of them had secrets, and Hoover collected them all. 1956-1968. Hoover's war on Martin Luther King Jr. Of all Hoover's targets, none was pursued more aggressively than Martin Luther King Jr. It started in 1956, when King emerged as a civil rights leader. Hoover suspected King had communist connections, launched surveillance. What FBI found wasn't communism, it was adultery. King traveled constantly, stayed in hotels, had affairs with multiple women while away from his wife. FBI agents bugged his hotel rooms, recorded everything: photographs, audio recordings, evidence of multiple extramarital relationships. Hoover was obsessed. He sent memos demanding more surveillance, more recordings, more evidence. FBI memo, 1963. King is a tomcat with degenerate sexual urges. Continue surveillance. In 1964, after King won the Nobel Peace Prize, Hoover escalated. FBI compiled the worst audio recordings of King in hotel rooms, edited them into a tape, added an anonymous letter. The letter, later declassified, read, King, there is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have just 34 days. There is but one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, abnormal, fraudulent self is bared to the nation. The package was mailed to King's home. His wife opened it, heard the recordings. The FBI was suggesting King commit suicide. King didn't, but the surveillance continued until his death in 19... Former FBI agent Arthur Murtaugh later testified. Hoover was trying to destroy King, not arrest him, destroy him, ruin his marriage, ruin his reputation, drive him to suicide. The civil rights files contained normals, surveillance on King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, NAACP leaders, wiretaps, bugs, informants, photographers, personal information used to discredit leaders, evidence of FBI actively undermining civil rights movement. Hoover justified it as counterintelligence, protecting America from communist infiltration, but the files reveal something else. A racist director using FBI resources to destroy black leaders who threatened the status quo. 1962. How Hoover weaponized Hollywood's biggest star. When Marilyn Monroe began her affair with JFK in late 1961, Hoover knew immediately. FBI had been monitoring Kennedy for years. Hoover assigned agents to watch Marilyn, tap her phones, follow her movements. By early 1962, FBI had recordings of phone calls between Marilyn and Bobby Kennedy, Marilyn discussing JFK's secrets, Cuba, CIA operations, classified information, FBI memo, March 1962. Subject: Monroe has been told classified information by Lancer, FBI codename for JFK. Security risk assessment, extreme. Hoover saw opportunity. He called Bobby Kennedy. Your brother has been sharing classified information with an actress. That's a federal crime. I have recordings. What do you want? Bobby asked. I want you to end this relationship, and I want you to stop talking about my retirement. Bobby ended the relationship, stopped pushing for Hoover's retirement, but the Maryland files served another purpose: insurance. If the Kennedys ever moved against Hoover, he could leak the Maryland affair, destroy JFK's presidency, prove he'd compromised national security. When Maryland died in August 1962, Hoover's files disappeared into the vault, sealed, secret. Former FBI official Cartha DeLoach later admitted, those files were Hoover's nuclear option. He never used them because he didn't have to. Just knowing they existed kept the Kennedys in line. Ron 50s 1960s, the files Hoover wouldn't keep. While Hoover collected files on everyone, there was one group he refused to investigate: the Mafia. For decades, Hoover publicly denied organized crime existed in America. In congressional testimony, 1957, there is no national crime syndicate. Organized crime is a myth. This was insane. Everyone knew the Mafia existed. Police departments across America were investigating mob families. But Hoover wouldn't. Why? Theory 1. Hoover was incompetent. Didn't understand organized crime. Former agents rejected this. Hoover wasn't stupid. He knew the mob existed. He chose not to investigate. Theory 2. The Mafia had files on Hoover. This theory gained credibility in 1960s when evidence emerged. Meyer Lansky, mob boss, reportedly had photographs of Hoover in compromising situations. Hoover gambling in Las Vegas. Hoover with his deputy Clyde Tolson in situations that suggested a romantic relationship. If the Mafia leaked those photos, Hoover's career was over. Former mob associate Susan Berman would later claim, the mob had J. Edgar by the balls. He left us alone because we had pictures of him being gay. Theory 3. Hoover didn't want to investigate crimes he couldn't solve. Mob investigations were difficult, required years of work, infiltration, wiretaps that courts might not approve. Hoover preferred easy wins: bank robbers, kidnappers, crimes that made headlines. Organized crime was hard, so Hoover ignored it. Whatever the reason, the result was clear. While Hoover collected files on civil rights leaders and presidents, he gave organized crime a free pass for decades. The Mafia operated without FBI interference through the 1940s and 1950s. Only when Robert Kennedy became Attorney General in 1961 did the FBI reluctantly begin investigating the mob. And even then, Hoover resisted. Ronald Coquan, May 2, 1972. Hoover dies, files disappear. J. Edgar Hoover died in his sleep, age 77, heart attack. His housekeeper found him at 8:15 a.m., called Clyde Tolson, Hoover's deputy and companion. Tolson arrived at 8:45 a.m., made phone calls. At 9 a.m., before the coroner was notified, 2 men arrived at Hoover's house. They had keys. They went to the basement, to the room with steel doors, the secret files. They loaded filing cabinets onto a truck.
Worked for 90 minutes. By 10:30 a.m., the truck was gone. When FBI officials arrived at noon to secure Hoover's residence, the basement was empty. "Where are the files?" Assistant Director Mark Felt demanded. Nobody knew. The FBI conducted an internal investigation, determined that the files disappeared the morning of Hoover's death. Unknown individuals removed them before FBI could secure them. Who took the files? Theory 1. Clyde Tolson destroyed them to protect Hoover's legacy. Tolson inherited Hoover's estate, had access to the house, could have arranged the removal, but Tolson was interrogated, denied involvement, no evidence linked him. Theory 2. Nixon administration took them. Nixon's team had motive. Files on Nixon would be devastating. White House had resources to execute the operation, but no evidence ever surfaced. Watergate investigation found no connection. Theory 3. The files were taken by someone unknown and still exist. This is the terrifying possibility that Hoover's files, secrets on every president, senator, civil rights leader, celebrity from 1924-1972, are in someone's hands, somewhere, either because they were official FBI records or because copies existed elsewhere. Files that surfaced. 2002, FBI released 164,000 pages of files on Marilyn Monroe, showing extent of surveillance. 2007, FBI files on MLK partially declassified, revealing Hoover's obsession and the suicide letter. 2014, JFK assassination files released, showing FBI had monitored Kennedy extensively before his death, but these were official FBI files. The truly damaging material, the secret files from the basement, never appeared. What's still missing? Files on 8 U.S. presidents, files on hundreds of senators and congressmen, files on Hollywood's biggest stars, files on civil rights leaders. Whoever took those files in 1972 has never come forward, never sold them, never leaked them. Are they destroyed? Hidden? Still being used for leverage? Nobody knows. What we do know, J. Edgar Hoover ruled America through fear for 48 years. He collected secrets, used them for power, made himself untouchable. 8 presidents served during his tenure. None fired him, because all of them had secrets, and Hoover knew them all. He died the most powerful unelected official in American history, a man who never held public office but controlled those who did. And when he died, his greatest weapon, his files, vanished into history. Some say Hoover's dead, his power gone. Others say whoever has those files now, they're the most dangerous person in America, because the secrets didn't die with Hoover. They're still out there, somewhere,